The massive doors of the crystal throne room burst open with a sound like thunder. Queen Zareth of the Velthari Empire froze on her crystalline throne, her 6 arms gripping the armrests so tightly that hairline cracks appeared in the ancient mineral. Standing in the doorway was a figure she had mourned for 3 long years. Her daughter, Princess Kirith, alive and breathing, her silver skin gleaming under the palace lights. But something was wrong, terribly wrong. Beside Kira stood a creature Zareth had only seen in war reports and classified documents, a human, male, with short brown hair and wearing the simple clothes of their primitive species. His hand was intertwined with her daughter's. The throne room fell silent. The royal guard, massive warriors standing 8 feet tall, reached for their plasma weapons but hesitated. This was their lost princess after all, the court advisors whispered among themselves, their translator devices buzzing with urgent conversation. "Mother," Kira said, her voice carrying across the vast chamber, "I have returned." Queen Zareth rose slowly from her throne, her flowing robes cascading down the crystal steps. At 12 feet tall, she was an imposing figure even among her own people. Her 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern on her elongated face, studied the pair before her. "Kirith," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber, "we held your funeral. We mourned you for 3 cycles. The entire empire grieved for our lost princess. I know, Mother. I'm sorry I couldn't contact you sooner, but I had to stay hidden. I had to protect him." Kira squeezed the human's hand tighter. The human stepped forward and the royal guard immediately raised their weapons. He stopped but didn't back down, meeting the queen's gaze with surprising steadiness. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice clear, despite the obvious fear in his eyes. "My name is David Chen. I know this is unexpected." Zareth descended the steps, each footfall echoing like a judge's gavel. "Unexpected?" Her voice grew colder with each word. "My daughter, who we believed died fighting your savage species, returns hand in hand with one of them. This is beyond unexpected, child. This is impossible." The court murmured in agreement. Some voices called for the human's immediate execution. Others demanded to know how the princess had survived the Battle of Kepler 442, where her ship had been destroyed by human forces. "Mother, please," Kira said, stepping protectively in front of David. "Let me explain. 3 years ago, when my ship was damaged, destroyed," Zareth corrected. "Your ship was destroyed. We found the debris. We found..." Her voice caught. "We found your blood. I was dying," Kira admitted. "My life support was failing. My ship was breaking apart. I thought it was over. But then David's rescue ship found me." David cleared his throat. "I was part of a civilian rescue operation. We were searching for survivors from both sides after the battle. When we found Princess Kira, she was barely alive. Our medical team..." "Silence," Zareth's voice boomed. "I did not give you permission to speak, human." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. The royal guard moved closer, their weapons now openly drawn. Court advisors activated their personal shields, expecting violence at any moment. But Kira stepped forward, placing herself fully between her mother and David. "If you wish to harm him, you will have to go through me." The words hung in the air, like a challenge. For the first time in her 300-year reign, Queen Zareth found herself speechless. "You would defend this creature against your own mother? Against your own people?" Zareth's 4 eyes blazed with hurt and anger. "I would defend the person who saved my life," Kira replied firmly. "The person who showed me that everything we believed about humans was wrong. The person I..." She hesitated, then lifted her chin defiantly. "The person I love." The court erupted. Advisors shouted in outrage. Guards stepped forward. The word love spoken by a Velthari princess about a human was perhaps the most scandalous thing ever uttered in this ancient throne room. But Queen Zareth raised one of her arms, and silence fell instantly. "Love," she whispered, the word sounding foreign on her lips. You speak of love for this primitive being, this enemy of our people? He's not our enemy, Mother. None of them are. Not really. If you would just listen, I have listened enough. Zareth turned to her captain of guards. Arrest the human. Prepare the execution chamber. No! Kira's scream echoed through the hall. In one fluid motion, she drew her ceremonial blade and pointed it at the approaching guards. I won't let you do this. David placed a gentle hand on her arm. Kira, it's okay. I knew this might happen. It's not okay. Tears streamed down her silver cheeks. I won't lose you. Not now. Not ever. Queen Zareth stared at her daughter, seeing something she had never seen before. Kira had always been strong, always been brave. But this was different. This was desperation. This was love. Stand down, she commanded the guards, who looked confused, but obeyed. All of you, leave us. I wish to speak with my daughter and her companion alone. The court filed out reluctantly, whispers following them like smoke. Soon, only the three of them remained in the vast throne room. Zareth approached slowly, studying David with new interest. You're smaller than I expected for a human, weaker looking. I'm not a soldier, Your Majesty. I'm a doctor. A healer? This seemed to surprise her. You save lives? I try to. That's how I met Kira. I was trying to save hers. The queen circled him like a predator examining prey, and in return you corrupted her mind, made her betray her own species. I didn't corrupt anything, David said firmly. I showed her who I really was, and she showed me who she really was. We learned that we're not so different. Not so different? Zareth laughed, but there was no humor in it. Look at us, human. Look at the vast differences between our species. We are superior in every way. Are you? David asked quietly. The simple question stopped the queen cold. No one had ever questioned Velthari's superiority in her presence. It should have been grounds for immediate execution. Explain yourself, she said dangerously. David took a deep breath. You're physically stronger, yes. You're more technologically advanced. Your empire spans multiple star systems. But in 3 years of war, have you come any closer to victory? Have you achieved anything besides mutual destruction? Kira watched the exchange nervously, ready to intervene if things went too far. We have won many battles, Zareth said. So have humans. And where has it gotten us? Both our peoples are dying. Both our worlds are scarred. For what? Territory, resources, pride? You wouldn't understand, the queen said dismissively. Humans are too primitive to grasp the complexities of interstellar politics. Maybe, David agreed, but we understand loss, we understand grief, and we understand love. When I found Kira dying in space, I didn't see an enemy. I saw someone who needed help. That's what makes us human. The queen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. She was my greatest joy. When she was born, I held her in all 6 of my arms and swore to protect her from everything in the universe. When we thought she died, the queen's voice broke slightly. I wanted to glass every human world in revenge. I know, David said gently. Kira told me. She also told me that you taught her to be compassionate, to be just, to always seek truth. Those teachings saved my life. How? When she found out I was human, she could have killed me. Her training said she should have. But she chose to listen, instead. To learn. To see past our differences. Zareth looked at her daughter, who was watching the exchange with hope in her eyes. Is this true, my child? Did my teachings guide you to this? Kira nodded. You taught me that strength without wisdom is destruction. You taught me that a true ruler serves her people, not her pride. Everything I am, everything I believe came from you. The queen sat heavily on the steps of her throne, suddenly looking older than her centuries. I have missed you so much, my daughter. When I thought you were dead, part of me died with you. I'm here now, Mother, and I want to be part of the solution. Solution? The war has to end, Kira said. This hatred, this destruction, it serves no one. David has shown me another way. Queen Zareth looked up at the human who had somehow stolen her daughter's heart. And what way is that? Peace, David said simply. Not conquest, not subjugation, partnership. Impossible. The differences between our species are too great. Are they? Kira asked. We both feel love, Mother. We both feel loss. We both want to protect our families. Maybe that's enough to start with. The Queen stood slowly, her decision weighing heavy on her shoulders. The fate of two civilizations might well rest on what she decided in this moment. This conversation is not over, she said finally. But I will not execute you today, human. Not while my daughter defends you. However, her voice hardened. You will remain under guard, both of you, until I decide what to do with this situation. Thank you, Mother, Kira said, relief evident in her voice. Do not thank me yet, child. The court will demand answers. The military will demand blood. Your return raises questions I am not sure I can answer. As if summoned by her words, the throne room doors opened and High Commander Vextar strode in, his battle armor gleaming and his weapons visible. Behind him marched a full squadron of the Empire's elite soldiers. My queen, he said, his voice like grinding metal. I hear disturbing reports. They say the princess has returned with a human pet. David felt Kira tense beside him, but she kept her blade ready. Commander, Queen Zareth said carefully, you forget yourself. The princess is my daughter, not your prisoner. The princess was declared dead, Your Majesty. Legally, she has no claim to her title, and bringing an enemy into the heart of our empire is treason. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The elite soldiers raised their weapons, and David realized that Queen Zareth's protection might not be enough to save them. You dare question my authority in my own throne room? The queen asked, her voice deadly quiet. I question nothing. My queen, I simply enforce the law. By imperial decree, all humans found within Velthari space are to be executed immediately. Commander Vextar raised his weapon, pointing it directly at David's chest. The energy weapon hummed with deadly power. Any last words, human? Chapter 2. Revelations. Time seemed to freeze in the crystal throne room. The humming of Vextar's weapon filled the silence like the buzz of death itself. David stared down the barrel of the plasma rifle, his heart pounding but his expression steady. Wait, he said, his voice surprisingly calm. Before you execute me, don't you want to know how the princess really survived? Don't you want to know what happened to the rest of her crew? Commander Vextar hesitated, his finger hovering over the trigger. Speak quickly, human. David, no, Kira whispered. Don't. It's okay, David said softly to her, then raised his voice to address the room. The princess didn't just survive by chance. She wasn't alone on that ship when it was destroyed. Queen Zareth stepped forward. What are you saying? I'm saying that Princess Kira was betrayed. Someone on her own ship sabotaged her mission and left her to die. The accusation hung in the air like a poison cloud. Commander Vextar's weapon wavered slightly. Impossible, he growled. No Velthari would betray the princess. Tell them, Kira, David said gently. Tell them what really happened 3 years ago. Princess Kira looked at her mother, then at the commander, her expression full of pain and old anger. He's right. I didn't want to believe it at first, but the evidence is clear. What evidence? Queen Zareth demanded. Kira reached into her robes and withdrew a small data crystal, its surface pulsing with stored information. The ship's black box. I managed to save it before the final explosion. That's impossible, Vextar said. No black box was recovered from the wreckage. Because it was never in the wreckage, Kira replied. I had it with me in the escape pod. The pod that someone sabotaged to ensure I would die slowly in space. The Queen took the data crystal with trembling hands. Show me. Kira activated a holographic projector, and the air above them shimmered into a three-dimensional display of her ship's final moments. The recording showed the princess on the bridge, coordinating with her crew as they engaged human forces. Computer, replay the last 30 minutes before hull breach, Kira commanded. The hologram shifted, showing the chaos of battle. Plasma fire lit up space as Velthari and human ships exchanged devastating volleys. But then something strange appeared. In the recording, a second explosion from inside the ship in a section that hadn't been hit by enemy fire. There, Kira pointed. Engineering Section 7. That explosion came from within our own ship, not from human weapons. Queen Zareth leaned forward, studying the display intently. Internal sabotage? Watch this. Kira advanced the recording. It showed her stumbling through smoke-filled corridors toward the escape pods, but when she reached them, sparks flew from the control panels. Someone had reprogrammed the pods, Kira explained. Instead of taking me to safety, they were set to drift into empty space with minimal life support. I was supposed to die slowly, alone, where no one would ever find me. Who? The Queen whispered. Who would do such a thing? Kira looked directly at Commander Vextar. Someone with access to my ship's systems. Someone with command codes. Someone who knew my mission parameters and could predict my escape route. Vextar's weapon lowered slightly. You accuse me, Princess? I accuse someone, Kira said carefully. Someone who wanted me dead and was willing to work with human forces to make it happen. That's enough. Vextar raised his weapon again. These are the ravings of a mind poisoned by human contact. The princess has clearly been brainwashed. But David stepped forward, unafraid. If she's been brainwashed, then explain this. He reached into his own pocket and withdrew a communication device. Play the message, Kira. Kira nodded and activated the device. A voice filled the throne room, a Velthari voice speaking in the ancient military codes. The princess is secure in Sector 7. Detonate the charges on my signal. Make sure there are no survivors to question our methods. Queen Zareth went very still. I know that voice. As do I, Kira said sadly. It took me months to accept the truth, but the voice analysis is conclusive. The Queen turned to look at her military commander, her four eyes blazing with fury. Vextar, explain this. Lies, Vextar snarled. Human tricks and fabrications. They have corrupted the princess and filled her mind with poison. The voice analysis was done with Velthari technology, Kira said. Equipment that David has never seen. Equipment that cannot be fooled or faked. The elite soldiers behind Vextar looked uncertain now. Their weapons remained raised, but they were looking back and forth between their commander and their queen. Why? Queen Zareth asked, her voice full of pain. Why would you murder my daughter? Vextar's facade finally cracked, his face twisted, with years of hidden resentment. Because she was weak, because she questioned our methods, because she would have made a terrible ruler. The admission hit the room like a physical blow. Several of the elite soldiers actually stepped away from their commander. I did what was necessary for the Empire, Vextar continued. The princess was too soft, too willing to show mercy to our enemies. Under her eventual rule, we would have grown weak and been conquered. So you conspired with humans to kill her? The Queen asked incredulously. I used human weapons to eliminate a threat to our people. It was a tactical decision. David spoke up quietly. Actually, Commander, you didn't just use human weapons. You used human contacts. You had help from inside our military. Vextar's eyes widened. He had just revealed far more than he intended. That's right, David continued. The attack on Princess Kira's ship was a joint operation. Some humans wanted the war to continue just as much as you did. They were willing to eliminate a voice of reason from both sides. Queen Zareth looked between David and her daughter. Both sides? You mean there are humans who also wanted Kira dead? Peace is bad for business, David said grimly. There are people on both sides who profit from this war. Military contractors, weapons manufacturers, politicians who gain power from fear and hatred. They couldn't let someone like Kira live to potentially end their profitable conflict. This is getting complicated, Kira said to David. Maybe we should tell them about General Morrison. David nodded reluctantly. General Morrison was the human commander who helped plan the attack on your ship. He's also the one who ordered my rescue mission to be terminated when we found you alive. The Queen's mind was reeling. They wanted to silence both of you? They still do, David said. That's why we've been hiding for 3 years. That's why we couldn't come home until now. What changed? The Queen asked. Kira and David exchanged a look. Morrison is dead, Kira said simply. He died in a shuttle accident 2 months ago. Without his protection, Vextar's conspiracy started to unravel. Commander Vextar realized he was trapped. His secret was exposed. His human allies were gone, and he was standing in a room full of people who now knew the truth. His response was predictable. He raised his weapon toward the Queen herself. If I cannot save the Empire from weakness, then perhaps it deserves to fall, he snarled. But he had forgotten that Princess Kira was a trained warrior. Her ceremonial blade flew from her hand with perfect accuracy, striking Vextar's weapon and sending it spinning across the throne room floor. The elite soldiers, finally understanding the situation, turned their weapons on their former commander. Vextar was surrounded, disarmed, and utterly defeated. Take him to the detention center, Queen Zareth commanded. Full security. I want to know everything about this conspiracy. Every contact, every plan, every detail. As the soldiers dragged Vextar away, he shouted back at them. This changes nothing. The war will continue. There are others who think as I do. Others who will not let weakness prevail. The throne room fell quiet again, but the silence felt different now. It was the silence that comes after a storm, when the air is clear, but the damage is still being assessed. Queen Zareth sat heavily on her throne, looking older than her centuries. My own military commander. Someone I trusted with my life, with my daughter's life. Someone I called friend. Kira approached her mother slowly. Mother, I'm sorry. I know this is painful. Painful? The Queen laughed bitterly. My daughter was murdered by my closest advisor, saved by my enemy, and has returned to tell me that my entire understanding of this war is wrong. Painful doesn't begin to describe it. David cleared his throat. Your Majesty, if I may, there's more. Both Velthari women looked at him. The conspiracy goes deeper than just Vextar and Morrison. During our time in hiding, Kira and I uncovered evidence of a larger network, people on both sides who are actively working to prevent peace. How large? The Queen asked wearily. Large enough to make ending this war very difficult, Kira said, but not large enough to make it impossible. Mother, that's why we came back. Not just because we missed home, but because we have information that could change everything. Queen Zareth studied her daughter's face. 3 years ago, Kira had been young, idealistic, perhaps even naive. The woman standing before her now was older, wiser, and harder. The war had changed her, but so had love. Tell me, the Queen said, finally. Tell me everything. David and Kira exchanged another look, and David nodded. It starts with the Battle of Kepler 442, Kira began. The battle where I supposedly died. That battle wasn't just a random engagement, Mother. It was orchestrated. Both sides were maneuvered into position by their respective conspirators. To what end? To eliminate moderates on both sides, David said. My ship was carrying a delegation of human diplomats who wanted to negotiate peace. Your ship was carrying the one Velthari princess who had openly questioned the war's necessity. The Queen's 4 eyes widened. They wanted to remove voices of reason from both sides. Exactly, Kira confirmed, and it almost worked. If David's rescue team hadn't found me, if we hadn't learned to trust each other, the conspiracy would have succeeded completely. But you did survive, both of you. And now? David smiled for the first time since entering the throne room. Now we have something they never expected. We have proof that two species can work together. We have evidence of the conspiracy. And we have each other. The Queen looked at their intertwined hands, and for the first time, she didn't see it as something wrong. She saw it as something strong. The court will never accept this, she said quietly. Nor will the human government. Too many people have too much invested in this war continuing. Then we'll have to change their minds, Kira said firmly. All of them. How? Together, David said simply. Humans and Velthari, working together. It's the only way. Queen Zarath stood and walked to the great windows that looked out over her capital city. In the distance, she could see the spaceports where warships were being loaded with weapons and soldiers. The machinery of war, grinding on as it had for years. Do you really believe it's possible? She asked without turning around. After all the death, all the hatred, all the pain, do you really believe our species can find peace? Yes, Kira said without hesitation. Because if David and I can fall in love despite everything that should have kept us apart, then anyone can learn to see past their differences. The Queen turned back to face them. Very well. But this will not be easy. There will be those on both sides who will try to stop us. Some may try to kill us all. We know, David said. We've been living with that threat for 3 years. And you're still willing to try? We have to try, Kira said. The alternative is the destruction of both our peoples. Queen Zarath nodded slowly. Then we try. But we do this carefully, and we do this together. If my daughter is to risk her life for peace, then her mother will stand beside her. For the first time in years, hope flickered in the crystal throne room. But outside, in the corridors of power, other forces were already moving to stop them. Chapter 3. The War Council. The Velthari High Command Center buzzed with activity as news of Princess Kira's return spread through the military hierarchy. Holographic displays showed fleet positions across 3 star systems, while tactical officers updated battle plans and supply routes. But the usual efficiency was disrupted by whispered conversations and worried glances. Admiral Thaynix, second, in command after the arrested Vextar, stood before a massive star map, his scarred face grim. Around him, the remaining military leadership waited for orders. The situation is unprecedented, Admiral Thaynix said, his voice carrying the weight of decades of warfare. Our princess returns from the dead, our supreme commander is arrested for treason, and we're told to consider peace with the humans. Some of you have asked for my position on these matters. The assembled officers leaned forward. These were hardened veterans who had fought the human menace for years. Many had lost friends, family members, entire units to human weapons. I served with Commander Vextar for 30 years. Thaynix continued. If he truly betrayed the princess, then he deserves his fate. But that doesn't mean his concerns about human contact were wrong. General Karth, a massive warrior whose left arm had been replaced with cybernetic implants after a human attack, stepped forward. Admiral, with respect, the princess has clearly been compromised. 3 years in human hands, who knows what they've done to her mind? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. I've seen the interrogation records from captured humans, Colonel Velsh added. They're capable of sophisticated psychological manipulation. The princess may genuinely believe she loves this creature, but that doesn't make it real. Admiral Thaynix studied the faces around him. Good soldiers, loyal to the Empire, but also afraid that everything they had fought for might be for nothing. What do you recommend? He asked. Quarantine protocols, General Karth said immediately. The humans should be isolated and studied. The princess should be examined by our best medical and psychological teams. We need to determine the extent of the contamination. And if the Queen refuses? The room fell silent. No one wanted to speak the words that hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Finally, Colonel Velsh spoke quietly. The Queen is not immune to human influence either. She's been emotionally compromised by her daughter's return. She may not be thinking clearly. You suggest we override the Queen's authority? Thanex asked dangerously. I suggest we protect the Empire from all threats, Karth said firmly, external and internal. Meanwhile, in the human sector of space, a similar meeting was taking place aboard the UES Defender, flagship of the human fleet. Admiral Sarah Chen, David's older sister, though few knew of their relationship, stood before her own war council, her expression carefully neutral as she read the intelligence report. According to our sources, Dr. David Chen is alive and currently on the Velthari homeworld, she said, her voice betraying no emotion. He's apparently been living with the Velthari princess we thought we killed 3 years ago. Captain Rodriguez, her tactical officer, shook his head in disbelief. It has to be a trap. The squids are using your brother to get to us somehow. How? Admiral Chen asked. I don't know, but it's the only explanation that makes sense. David Chen was reported dead after his unauthorized rescue mission. Now he shows up alive on their homeworld. They've either been holding him prisoner or they've turned him. General Patricia Hayes, the newly appointed Supreme Commander of Human Forces, leaned back in her chair. The timing is suspicious. Our intelligence suggests the Velthari are preparing for a major offensive. This could be psychological warfare. Or, said Dr. Elizabeth Warren, the chief xenobiologist, it could be exactly what it appears to be. A human and a Velthari who found common ground. The military officers looked at her as if she'd suggested dancing with the enemy. With respect, Doctor, Captain Rodriguez said, you've never been in combat with them. You haven't seen what they're capable of. The idea that one of them could genuinely care for a human is unlikely, is it? Dr. Warren asked. We know they're intelligent. We know they have complex social structures. Why is it so hard to believe they might be capable of love? Because they're aliens, General Hayes said flatly. They're not human. They don't think like us, feel like us, or value what we value. Admiral Chen had been quiet during this exchange, studying her brother's file. David had always been the idealistic one in their family, the one who believed in helping others regardless of the cost. It was entirely possible that he would risk everything to save an enemy soldier's life. What are your orders, Admiral? Captain Rodriguez asked. Sarah Chen closed the file and looked up at her officers. We maintain our current defensive posture. We monitor the situation, and we prepare for the possibility that this is either a trap or a genuine opportunity for dialogue. Dialogue? General Hayes looked skeptical. After 3 years of war? After all the lives lost? General Morrison is dead, Admiral Chen said quietly. Whatever his agenda was, it died with him. Maybe it's time to consider new options. You're not seriously considering negotiating with them? Captain Rodriguez asked. I'm seriously considering not throwing away more human lives if there's another way. The room fell silent. Like their Velthari counterparts, these officers had lost friends and colleagues to enemy action. The idea of peace felt almost like betrayal. But Admiral Chen was thinking about her brother, alone on an alien world, trusting in the goodness of beings most humans considered monsters. Either he was the bravest man she'd ever known, or he was already dead. Back on the Velthari, homeworld, Queen Zareth was discovering just how difficult the path to peace would be. The military wants to quarantine your human, she told Kira as they walked through the palace gardens. They believe he's contaminated you somehow. Kira's silver skin flushed with anger. Contaminated? As if love were a disease? To them, it might as well be, the Queen said sadly. Fear is easier than understanding, my daughter. It always has been. David, walking beside them under heavy guard, looked up at the alien sky. 2 suns hung overhead, casting strange shadows through the crystalline trees. Everything here was beautiful and alien and dangerous. Your Majesty, he said carefully, I've been thinking about the resistance we're facing on both sides. And what if we don't try to convince everyone at once? What if we start smaller? Queen Zareth stopped walking. Explain. In medicine, when we're dealing with a widespread infection, we don't try to cure everyone simultaneously. We identify key points of contact, create safe zones, and let the cure spread naturally. Kira caught on immediately. A demonstration. Something that shows cooperation is possible. Exactly. We find others on both sides who are already questioning the war. We show them that humans and Velthari can work together. We create proof that peace is possible. The Queen considered this. It would be dangerous. Those who profit from war won't hesitate to eliminate threats to their income. More dangerous than continuing to fight until both our species destroy each other? David asked. Before the Queen could answer, one of her guards approached quickly. Your Majesty, the guard said urgently. Admiral Thanks requests an immediate audience. He says it's a matter of imperial security. The Queen sighed. And so it begins. Very well. Escort the Admiral to the private audience chamber and increase security around my daughter and her companion. As they made their way back to the palace, none of them noticed the small surveillance drone hovering among the crystal branches, recording their every word. In the High Command Center, Admiral Thanks watched the recording with growing concern. They're planning something, General Karth said. Some kind of conspiracy with human sympathizers. We can't let this spread, Colonel Velsh added. If the idea of cooperation takes hold among our people, it won't, Thanek said firmly. We'll make sure of that. Prepare security protocols. I want every human sympathizer on this world identified and monitored. And if the Queen interferes? Thanex was quiet for a long moment. The Queen is wise, but she's also a mother. Her judgment may be compromised by her daughter's return. If necessary, we'll have to protect the Empire from itself. On the human flagship, Admiral Chen was receiving her own troubling intelligence. Ma'am, her communications officer reported, we're detecting increased Velthari military activity. Ship movements, communications traffic, defensive positions being reinforced. Are they preparing to attack? Unknown, but it looks like they're preparing for something significant. Admiral Chen stared out at the stars, wondering if her brother was still alive, wondering if peace was possible, wondering if she was about to become responsible for the deaths of millions. Maintain alert status, she ordered, and get me a secure channel to Earth Command. If this situation deteriorates, I want all options available. The machinery of war continued to grind forward on both sides, while in the Crystal Palace 3 individuals plotted to stop it. But time was running out, and forces beyond their control were already moving to ensure that the war would continue, no matter the cost. The question was, could love and hope triumph over fear and hatred, or would the galaxy burn while they tried to find out? Chapter 4. The Choice. The emergency session of the Velthari High Council convened at dawn, the crystal chambers filled with the Empire's most powerful leaders. Senators, military commanders, trade representatives, and planetary governors had all been summoned with less than 12 hours' notice. Queen Zareth entered the chamber to find the mood hostile. Angry voices echoed off the crystalline walls as representatives demanded answers about the princess's return, the commander's arrest, and the humans' presence on their world. Order, the Queen commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. We are here to discuss the future of our empire, not to bicker like children. Senator Crixtel, an elderly statesman who had served the empire for over 2 centuries, rose from his seat. Your Majesty, with the greatest respect, we must address the crisis facing our people. The princess's association with this human threatens everything we've fought for. And what have we fought for, Senator? The Queen asked pointedly. What have 3 years of war accomplished? We've defended our territory, General Mordak declared. We've shown the humans that we won't be conquered. Have we? Princess Kira stepped into the chamber, flanked by guards but walking with her, head held high. Or have we simply proven that we're as capable of hatred and destruction as any species in the galaxy? The chamber erupted in angry shouts. Several senators called for Kira's removal, claiming she was no longer fit to speak for the Velthari people. I have something to say, Kira said, her voice carrying over the noise. Something you all need to hear. We don't need to hear human propaganda, Senator Velmore spat. Then don't listen to me, Kira replied calmly. Listen to him. David stepped into the chamber, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Every eye in the room focused on the human who had somehow survived 3 years in their territory. Honored representatives, David began, his voice steady despite the obvious hostility. I know most of you see me as an enemy. I understand why. My species has killed your people just as your species has killed mine. Then why are you here? Senator Crickstall demanded. Because I've seen what you're capable of when you choose compassion over conquest, David replied. Princess Kira saved my life, but more than that, she saved my understanding of what's possible between our peoples. Pretty words, General Mordak growled. But words don't resurrect the dead. No, they don't, David agreed. But they might prevent more deaths. Every day this war continues. Families on both sides lose sons and daughters, mothers and fathers. Every day we choose hatred over hope. We make their sacrifices meaningless. Admiral Thane stood up, his scarred face hard with years of warfare. You speak of hope, human, but what can you offer us? What guarantee do you have that your people won't simply use any peace as an opportunity to prepare for total war? David looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. I can't guarantee anything about my entire species, Admiral. No one person can speak for billions. But I can tell you this. There are humans who want peace just as desperately as some of you do. People who are tired of burying their children, tired of resources being spent on weapons instead of healing. Names, Senator Velmore demanded. Give us names of these supposed peace advocates. My sister, Admiral Sarah Chen, commands the human fleet currently positioned at the edge of your territory. She's been arguing for diplomatic solutions for months. The Velthari leaders exchanged glances. Admiral Chen was known to them as a competent military commander, but also as someone who avoided unnecessary casualties. Dr. Elizabeth Warren leads our Xenobiology Research Division. She spent years trying to understand your culture, your biology, your society. She believes cooperation is not only possible but inevitable if both our species are to survive. And if we were to consider this, cooperation, Queen Zarath said carefully, what would it look like? David glanced at Kira, who nodded encouragingly. Joint, research stations, shared medical knowledge, cultural exchanges, trade agreements that benefit both species rather than exploiting one or the other. Impossible, General Mordak declared. Our species are too different. Are we? Kira asked. David, show them what we discovered. David activated a portable holographic projector, displaying a complex molecular structure that rotated slowly in the air above them. This is a protein synthesis we developed together, David explained. Combining Velthari biotechnology with human genetic research, it could revolutionize medicine for both our species. Dr. Yilth, the Empire's chief medical officer, leaned forward with interest. What does it do? It repairs cellular damage at the genetic level, Kira said. Diseases that have plagued both our peoples for centuries could be eliminated. We developed it together, David added. Neither of our species could have created it alone. It required both human creativity and Velthari precision. The chamber was quieter now, representatives studying the holographic display with growing interest. This is just the beginning, Kira continued. In 3 years, David and I have identified dozens of areas where our species could work together. Energy production, space travel, environmental restoration. Even if this were possible, Senator Crickstall said slowly, the logistics would be enormous. How do you propose to overcome centuries of mistrust? One step at a time, David said. Start with small projects, joint research teams working on non-military applications, cultural exchanges between our young people, trade agreements that prove cooperation is profitable. Queen Zarath watched the faces around her. She could see the fear but also something else, curiosity. For the first time in years, her people were considering something other than warfare. The human military won't accept this, Admiral Thanks pointed out. They'll see any cooperation as weakness to be exploited. Some will, David admitted, just as some Velthari will see it as betrayal. But others are ready for a different path. My sister has already identified several commanders who are interested in exploring alternatives to endless war. This is all theoretical, General Mordak said dismissively. What proof do you have that any of this would work? Kira and David exchanged a look that spoke volumes. We are the proof, Kira said simply. A Velthari princess and a human doctor who fell in love despite everything that should have kept us apart. If we can build a life together, our species can build a future together. The chamber fell silent. The simple truth of their relationship seemed to hang in the air like a challenge to everything the assembled leaders thought they knew about the universe. Senator Crickstall was the first to speak. Your Majesty, this is unprecedented. We would need time to consider all the implications. Time we may not have, the Queen replied. Our intelligence suggests that hardliners on both sides are planning to escalate the conflict. If we're going to try a different path, we need to act quickly. What do you propose? Dr. Yilth asked. A summit, David said. Representatives from both species, meeting on neutral ground. Not to negotiate surrender or conquest, but to explore the possibility of coexistence. Madness, General Mordak muttered, but even he seemed less certain than before. Perhaps, Queen Zareth said, but the alternative is the potential extinction of both our peoples. Are we so proud that we would choose destruction over the chance for peace? Admiral Thane stood, up slowly. Your Majesty, if we were to consider this proposal, it would have to be done very carefully. Any sign of weakness would invite attack from human extremists. And any sign of human treachery would unite our entire military against them. General, Mordak added. Then we'll have to be very careful, Kira said, and very brave. The debate continued for hours, representatives raising concerns about security, logistics, political implications, and the reactions of their respective populations. But gradually, a consensus began to emerge. They would try. Not because they were certain it would work, but because the alternative was too terrible to contemplate. Very well, Queen Zareth said finally. We will send a proposal to the human leadership, a limited summit with representatives from both sides, to explore the possibility of peaceful coexistence. And if they refuse? Senator Velmore asked. Then, we'll know we tried, the Queen replied, and history will judge us accordingly. As the council session ended, David found himself standing alone with Kira in one of the palace's observation decks, looking out at the stars. Do you think it will work? Kira asked. I don't know, David admitted, but I know we have to try. Too many people have died for us to give up now. Kira took his hand, their fingers intertwining naturally despite the differences in their physiology. Whatever happens, she said, we'll face it together. Together, David agreed. But even as they stood there, planning for peace, forces on both sides were mobilizing to ensure that the war would continue. The next few days would determine not just the fate of two individuals in love, but the future of two entire civilizations. In the darkness of space, ships moved into position, weapons were armed, and the machinery of war prepared for what might be its final devastating act. The choice between love and hatred, between hope and fear, between peace and destruction, hung in the balance, and time was running out. Epilogue. New Horizons. 6 months later, the Joint Research Station, Harmony, floated serenely in the neutral zone between human and Velthari space. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Human innovation combined with Velthari craftsmanship to create something neither species could have built alone. Dr. David Chen stood in the station's medical bay, working alongside Dr. Yilth to synthesize their latest breakthrough. The protein synthesis they had demonstrated to the High Council had been just the beginning. Together, human and Velthari researchers had developed treatments for diseases that had plagued both species for generations. The cellular regeneration rate is exceeding our projections. Dr. Yilth reported, her 4 eyes focused on the microscopic display. This could revolutionize trauma medicine for both our peoples. David smiled, still amazed by how natural it felt to work with his former Enemies. Kira was right. We accomplished more together than we ever could apart. Princess Kira entered the medical bay, now wearing the insignia of an official diplomatic liaison. Her role was to facilitate cooperation between the two species, translating not just languages but entire ways of thinking. The cultural exchange students are arriving tomorrow, she reported. 12 humans and 12 Velthari, our first integrated class. How are their families handling it? David asked. Better than expected, Kira said. Fear is giving way to curiosity, slowly but surely. The path to peace had not been easy. There had been protests on both sides, terrorist attacks by extremists, and several moments when the entire process nearly collapsed. The summit had almost ended in disaster when hardliners from both species attempted to sabotage the proceedings. But gradually, step by careful step, progress had been made. Admiral Sarah Chen's fleet and Admiral Thanik's forces now patrolled the neutral zone together, their ships flying in formation as they protected the growing number of cooperative ventures. Former enemies worked side by side, learning to trust each other through shared purpose. The latest reports from the homeworlds are encouraging, Kira continued. Trade agreements are being finalized, and there's talk of joint colonies in previously unexplored systems. David nodded, but his expression remained cautious. And the opposition? Still active, but losing support. It's hard to argue against peace when people can see the benefits with their own eyes. The benefits were becoming impossible to ignore. Medical advances, technological innovations, cultural enrichment, cooperation between the two species was proving profitable as well as peaceful. Queen Zarath's approval ratings had soared as her people saw their lives improving. Human President Martinez had been re-elected on a platform of strength through cooperation. The war profiteers and extremists found themselves increasingly marginalized. Dr. Chen, Dr. Yilth said, interrupting his thoughts. The genetic sequencing is complete. We're ready for the first human trials of the longevity treatment. David looked at the data with wonder. Velthari natural lifespans were nearly 3 times longer than humans, but by combining their genetic research, they had developed treatments that could extend human lives while improving Velthari resistance to certain diseases. Sometimes I can't believe this is real, he said quietly. Kira moved to stand beside him, her hand finding his. Which part? The medical breakthrough or the fact that we're not at war anymore? All of it. A year ago, I was hiding in a cave with you convinced we'd never see our homes again. Now we're building a future neither of our species imagined possible. Through the medical bay's transparent walls, they could see the stars beyond, no longer divided into human and Velthari territory, but simply space waiting to be explored together. The exploration fleet is launching next week, Kira said, following his gaze. Joint crews heading for the Andromeda contact zone. First contact with a third species had changed everything. The discovery that humans and Velthari were not alone in the universe had put their war into perspective. Faced with the possibility of contact with other intelligences, cooperation had stopped being idealistic and become practical. Commander Torres and Captain Velkun seem to work well together, David observed. They should. They've been training together for 6 months. David turned to study his wife's face. They had been married in a ceremony that combined traditions from both species, with Queen Zarath and Admiral Chen both in attendance. The symbolism had not been lost on anyone. Any regrets? He asked. Kira smiled, her silver skin catching the starlight. About choosing love over fear? Never. Even when it nearly got us both killed? Especially then. David, we've proven that change is possible, that people can learn to see past their differences, that love really can conquer hatred. Dr. Yilth looked up from her work. If you two are finished being philosophical, we have a medical revolution to complete. They laughed and returned to their research, but David's mind kept drifting to the larger implications. The Joint Research Station was just one of dozens now operating throughout human and Velthari space. Universities were establishing exchange programs. Artists were collaborating on works that neither species could have conceived alone. Children were growing up learning both languages, both cultures. The war was becoming history, but more importantly, it was becoming a lesson, a reminder of what fear and hatred could accomplish and what love and understanding could overcome. Incoming transmission from the homeworld, the station's AI announced. Queen Zarath's image appeared in the medical bay, her expression warm with pride. "My daughter, Dr. Chen," she said formally, then smiled. "How are my favorite revolutionaries today?" "Still working to change the galaxy, Mother," Kira replied. "Excellent. I'm calling to inform you that the Galactic Council has approved our application for joint membership. Humans and Velthari will be represented as allied species." David felt a surge of emotion. The Galactic Council was a loose confederation of spacefaring civilizations, and membership meant recognition as mature, peaceful societies. "That's wonderful news, Your Majesty," he said. "It's Queen Mother now, Dr. Chen," Zarath corrected with amusement. "I believe you humans have a similar tradition." David looked confused until Kira placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "Surprise," she said softly. The realization hit him like a physical blow. We're going to be parents," Kira confirmed. "The first hybrid child of our species." Dr. Yilth's medical scanners had already confirmed what natural conception had accomplished. Human and Velthari genetics were compatible enough to produce offspring, though the child would be unique in the galaxy. "This changes everything," David whispered. "This changes nothing," Kira corrected. "We're still the same people, fighting for the same future. We'll just have a very personal stake in making sure that future is peaceful." Queen Zarath's image smiled warmly. "The child will be both human and Velthari, but more than that, they will be a bridge between worlds, a living symbol of what our species can accomplish together." David looked around the medical bay at the Velthari and human researchers working side by side, at the star charts showing joint colonies and exploration routes, at the woman he loved and the child they would raise together. A year ago, he had been a simple doctor trying to save lives in the aftermath of battle. Now he was part of something larger, a movement that had transformed hatred into hope, war into peace, and fear into love. "What do we do now?" he asked. Kira smiled and squeezed his hand. "Now we build the future, one day at a time, one discovery at a time, one child at a time." Outside the station, the stars shone with infinite possibility. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders yet to be discovered, civilizations yet to be met, challenges yet to be overcome. But for the first time in years, the future looked bright. The war was over, the peace had begun, and love had conquered all.